Mr. Mike Paterson of Sasquatch, Ontario. He's the new author of his new book, Invisible Giant. He's been documenting his experiences with Sasquatch people for a very long time now, 16-ish years or something like that.
18 years.
18 years, pardon me. Please welcome Mr. Mike Paterson.
Thanks, everybody. So as Tyler mentioned, this basically started for me back in about 2007. I was going into the woods with a camera, chasing wildlife, interacting with nature, and I'm pretty confident that I was being watched. And I think they liked what they saw, how I interacted with nature. I just, trying to get good pictures with a camera. And with my experience at this point, I think they planted the thought to start looking for them. So it was the very first time I went out. I didn't have a close encounter experience, but I was with a friend and we heard one vocalizing off in the distance in the morning over and over, this screaming going on. And then it was in 2008, October 25th, 2008. I was invited to a location that I was extremely, I had a very difficult time believing that there could be Sasquatch at this location. It was just, it wasn't remote or anything. And went into the woods. I met this guy for the first time. And we were no longer in contact, but I met him at noon, and by 4:30 p.m., my life was changed forever. He had picked up a fist-sized rock. He walked up to a tree, and we spent about 4.5 hours and walking the trails and that, and he's kind of giving me the lowdown of, the subject and that. I was new and, doing some tree knocks and that, which basically I think everybody does getting involved in this. And it was about 4:30 in the afternoon. I remember it was overcast, a slight drizzle going on. He picked up a fist-sized rock, walked up to a big pine, he smacked it a few times, dropped the rock. And then I heard what sounded exactly like a gorilla chest thump, like 3 times, just that hollow type sound. It was really rapid. And I'm pretty good with my sounds in the woods, so this really stuck out, and I put my arm up like, be quiet, let's listen. And a few seconds later we hear these giant guttural, it was like whoop whoop whoop. Yeah, I can't even come close to that, but he sounded massive, about maybe 10 feet tall. His voice was absolutely massive, and I remember thinking at the time that he sounded like he could speak English. It was so pronounced. Little did I know that, with their language and that. And my jaw hit the ground. I was floored. We sat down for a few minutes. I remember there was a lady come walking around the corner with a small dog, just walking her dog on the trail. And she had this, we just kind of nodded. And as she walked by, I remember she had this scowl on her face. She was closer than we were to hearing that vocalization, and it was loud. It filled the forest, and so that was basically first time really that I went out looking with that much intent on discovering that. So they showed up right away, and then it would be a week later that I would go up to the same area by myself, and I went into the woods, and this was the first time, and right away they started showing me their high strangeness. So I went into the woods. I'm walking these trails, and I hear this exact same gorilla type chest thump, the exact same tone I heard the week before. So I knew they were right there beside me. It was right there beside me. And next thing I know, I'm driving home, like 20 minutes, maybe maybe a little more on the road and not knowing how I got there. So they made me leave. There was no negativity about it. There was no fear or anything. It's just they made me leave. It's like they wiped my mind. And I don't remember walking out of the forest. I'm just in my car driving home wondering how the hell I got there. So I spent the next 4+ years frequenting that area and other locations with this same acquaintance that I had at the time. And we went into different locations, and I had numerous experiences over the years. We're in basically that, where I had that initial high strange encounter. We were in there again one night during the week, snow on the ground, full moon, or a lot of moonlight. Didn't even need a flashlight, really. It was so bright. And I'm checking out this, we're walking the main trail, and I'm checking out this trackway that crosses it, trying to figure out what it is, if it's, if it's a deer hopping or what. Never did figure it out, because next thing we hear these bipedal footsteps crunching through the snow right beside us, like right around us. And I remember I was freaking out. I had my dad had let me use an old 8mm videotape he had, this, because this is way back, right? And I was in such denial at that time that I taped over the sounds, right? I had the audio basically and the video of that trackway, and I taped over it. I'm pretty sure I did anyways. And after that, actually, that first vocalization that I mentioned, even though I knew 100% that was Sasquatch, they're real, I spent probably the next couple weeks in denial, and it played over and over and over like a broken record from when I woke up to when I went to sleep. Just a massively profound, deeply profound effect on me. So I
go insane with that. Were you getting that feeling of going insane when that sound was coming? I mean, it would drive me bonkers.
It drove me. I wanted answers, and that's what I've done. So it's like, I need answers, and I'm very open-minded. I didn't know what I was dealing with at the time, so I didn't close off to anything. I had no idea about their abilities at that point. Never knew anything, because the subject wasn't speaking about it. It was very taboo. Anybody that would speak about, interdimensional or telepathy or their abilities would, you just get shot down and ridiculed, and people, they can't handle the ridicule, right? So understandably. And it would be in 2012 that the acquaintance that I was with, he had a YouTube channel, and he had put out a video. I had told him at the time, I said, because we were going up the west side of Algonquin, we had a spot up there where we were getting activity just outside of the park's jurisdiction. And I told him, with the video, I said in the description, don't say anything about our location, right? So he put the name of a town in that was nowhere near it. It just so happened to be where I'm visiting now since 2012. So the property owner, the property owner's son, who's now the property owner, his son contacted him, and then that information came to me that they wanted the property investigated. And I think he'd filed 4 reports with the BFRO, Bigfoot Research Organization. I call them bullshit research organization, but that's that's just me. But and they never responded. So when I got the information, I truly believe it was meant for me, because I had a knowing. This is what I'm waiting for. And I hadn't talked to him yet or anything. I just got this information. So I had this deep knowing that this is it. And sure enough, I first got invited in 2012. And I remember that I went in. Well, first I went to the property owner's son's house and I interviewed him and his spouse about activity going on the property, experiences they've had. So I got enough information to tell me, something going on there, and I got an invite to the cottage. And then when that happened, my first night there, it was him and his dad there, and myself. And I went in, I set up my tent in the woods, and I remember, we were sitting around talking, getting stories and that, and just, I'm asking certain questions, they're telling me certain things, like the neighbor one time got they saw what they thought was a bear run off with a cake that was I think it was in the kitchen inside the cottage, and that wasn't a bear. Or there was another family member that had gone behind the shed, to relieve himself one night, and he come running back out saying there's a bear behind the shed. Bears aren't behind a shed when there's a family sitting right there and there's no food, and they're sitting around the fire pit. And so I get these stories like this that all pointed to Sasquatch presence. He had told me his father had sat up in bed early one morning, and there was a Sasquatch standing outside the window with his back to him. His dad, he's an older guy, and got up and had to go to the bathroom, so he goes to relieve himself, comes back, and he's gone, right? The Sasquatch is gone. And that was basically the last straw before they called somebody to come in, which was me. And so when I went in for that first night, had my tent set up. I think it's probably about 1 o'clock in the morning, somewhere around there. I went walking down the little gravel road there, and then I went to veer off into the bush. I had just this tiny little crappy LED flashlight, and barely penetrated the woods, right? And just as I go walk into the woods, I see this glowing orange eyeball staring at me. I think probably peeking from behind a tree, right? Just the one eye. And it looked like it had a light turned on in its head. It wasn't, a reflection. It was glowing orange. And there was another incident that the property owner now, Dwayne. So Dwayne and myself, we make visits whenever, it's obviously always up to him. But there was one visit where he's on a snowmobile, and there was a pair of disembodied glowing red eyes that basically kept up with the snowmobile. He's not going slow, right? So all these little strange things happened. So that night when I saw the glowing orange eye, I turned around and I walked back to the cottage, and I said, I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. And they're like, oh, big tough Sasquatch guy, right? I'd never experienced anything like that before, but that was the only time I chickened out, basically. From then on, I was, at first I had free reign that I could come and go as I wanted and pitch my tent on their property. And I went through a hell of a lot of fear at the beginning, like literally heart attack moments where my heart's pounding. I thought it was going to explode out of my chest. It's just thought I was going to have a heart attack. Some of the things that have gone on, screams outside my tent, and just a lot of weird stuff, right? And running around the tent, and it was like they were testing me, and I stuck it out, because I knew I had the real deal going on here. So what do you do when you're looking for it? You either push through the fear, or you pack it up and go home. So I pushed through the fear, and I've been making visits ever since. So things have slowly developed. With Sasquatch, it's like baby steps. That's what they give you, baby steps. And Dwayne and I have this motto: always something new. There's such a variety of how they present themselves and how they show their presence to humans, and how they interact with humans, and they have a lot of humor. It's very consistent. they're the way they're very playful, very lighthearted. They're a happy people. Even though I've pissed Neff off a couple times over the years, but I've had to actually fix things more than once because making him mad, and he's yelled at me, and getting yelled at by a Sasquatch. It's you don't want to do that, but they have never harmed me. So 18 years of doing this, I've never had any harm come to me whatsoever. I've never feared for my life. I've never had any worry that I was going to be harmed. And this is in multiple locations where I've had activity happen over the years.
You ever thought you'd maybe be dead?
At first,
you were gonna die.
At first, the fear that I had was a tree or a massive rock landing on my tent and crushing me. That was my fear. So, and I have some audio of one really good one of a tree I can't prove it got pushed over, but it got pushed over. I've recorded trees going over with these guys a number of times now, on a dead still night, and you hear the roots popping, and I have a piece of audio I'll play in a bit with that. But so over the years, they have continued to give and give and give and show that they have abilities and that they are people and that they're much more evolved and much more intelligent than most people are, give them credit for. When you get involved in this subject and you put this stuff out publicly, there's a lot of denial, and people, they do not want to accept that this is something that could run circles around every one of us, every person on earth, basically. They could be right here, right now, and quite possibly might be right here, right now, listening, considering the 8 footprints that were found today on that path. And there are character traits which I've learned along the way, because I've documented hundreds of footprints from them over the years. These are all cast in snow. They have the ability to leave a single footprint. And Dwayne and I are at the level now where we go outside in the wintertime, there might be a print waiting. If there isn't, we're looking, there's nothing. You turn your head, then you look back, boom, there's a footprint. Sometimes it's a younger family member, sometimes it's 20 inches, 12 feet tall. We were given a 20-inch print this past March. And when you see a 20-inch footprint, it's pretty incredible, because that with what we're involved in, they're right there watching us document and film, and it's not like this is found that it's been left there hours before. It's literally probably seconds old, if not less than a few minutes, basically. And this is a common occurrence with us. So there's been the first time I was given physical contact, we were having activity happen outside, so I had my video camera running. I have a YouTube channel called Sasquatch Ontario. It's the only video on there that's 1 minute long, and it gives the reaction I had when I was touched in the back of the head. And Dwayne's like, maybe not as far as you are, Greg, but maybe half that. And I said to him, did you just touch me in the back of the head? Knowing he's nowhere near me, but it's a shock, right? And he said, from here, and laughs, right? It's a shock the first time, the second time, the third time. It takes some getting used to with the physical contact. Like the last visit, I'm sitting at the kitchen table. I got my leg like that, and I get my foot pushed down under the table. And they've done this a bunch of times now. They did it twice last visit. It's like, how do you guys do that, man? It's under the table, right? There's no walls with these guys. There's no I've had activity happen inside my vehicle on a number of occasions. I've used my vehicle to document handprints and markings, which they've given many times. And it's all to show their presence, and they're very playful. They're very there's a lot of humor that comes with this, right? And it's very consistent.
Now, is their humor different than our humor, or what we find funny is the same thing that they find funny?
They what I've noticed about their humor, it can be annoying at times, especially the younger ones, but it's never malevolent. There's never any nasty behind it. It's all, like Dwayne's got these cushions on his kitchen chairs that got these divots in them. I've been caught a few times where he's filled them up with water, Ninyanin, right? That's this guy, Ninyanin, young 15-year-old who loves magic mushrooms, which I found out by mistake one night. And I've dosed him probably at least a couple dozen times now, and he just loves them. So they're very much like us. It took, I guess, 14 years now. This past winter, I learned Neff smokes. Dwayne smokes, so he would have cigarettes disappear. And I always thought it was them telling him, they don't like him smoking. Well, it was this year I learned that, no, it's because they're taking them for themselves. So last visit, I had a pack of smokes for them. Dwayne opens a pack, he still had a half a pack go missing. So they, a pack and a half of smokes.
Music, do they enjoy our music? Or do you have any?
I actually, I play music, right? So I had a band together for a while. We had a rehearsal space down in Etobicoke, Kipling, Lakeshore area. And we were there for, I don't know, 8-10 years, I can't remember. But we play loud, Marshall amps, and we're loud. And we had activity show up in the room on a number of occasions. I've documented orb activity inside the room. I remember one night we're about to start a jam, so I threw a audio recorder on, and the guys weren't ready, so I shut it off. It was a 6-second file. When I played it back at home, there was a Sasquatch grunt on it. That it was none of our voices, the 4 guys in the room, right? There's so that I have another friend that I jam with in his basement, and there's been a few incidents that have happened down there as well. And the way that they do things, they'll place things in a way that it's right in your face, and it's a head scratcher. Like these prints today. There was 2 sets of 2 prints, both the same foot, in a tightrope walk. There was 1 set of 3 prints, which was I think a left, right, right. 1 really big step, and then the same foot after. And then there was 1 bigger one, which was a single print. And all 8 prints had no slide in them, 0. If anybody was walking on that wet mud today, you saw how slippery that was. So it was pretty amazing to see. It was Michael over there that he came down. He told me about the 1 print that he found, and the other ones showed up after he had told me. So it was it was a pleasant surprise to see those 8 footprints today. Hey Judy, good to see you. Yeah, you missed that today. 8 footprints, Judy. So it's it was really nice to see that today, because that tells me they're here. They're with us. Whether they're going to do anything, who knows? The one thing I've learned with them is to never have any expectations. If something happens. You might hear footsteps walking around. Amy heard footsteps behind her tent. She went off by herself to hang out in the hammock, just chill out. And she said it made no sense. It was in the woods behind the tent there. Was that them? I don't know, but a very good possibility. She said she only heard 4 footsteps. and that's something that they would do, right? Actually, Amy has been to the location and she's witnessed it for herself. There's been very few people that have been invited over the years. There was Chris Munch back in 2013. He's a filmmaker for a Hollywood filmmaker, made the film Letters from the Big Man, which basically depicts them as close to what they truly are. And Chris he was there for 3 nights, got to experience some amazing stuff. You know, there's been apports, which are objects out of thin air, and marbles have been the main thing, but it's not just marbles, it's all kinds of other stuff, right? Chris was standing in the living room the one night we were talking about, you know, interdimensional stuff, and he had a marble appear right in front of him and drop to the floor. And then we were outside, and I was actually filming him speaking, and a red marble came straight down, and I caught that on camera, actually. Caught an apport on camera. I've been sitting at the kitchen table where I've been shown at arm's length, basically, a marble, say right here, slowly start to get pushed through empty space, and it popped through, and it looked like it came through a little wormhole and dropped to the floor. I have my audio running outside, windows open, so it captures all my reaction, right? So I've recorded audio every night, every visit. I record audio all night long, so I have quite the compiled database of raw audio.
Can you understand the language of the audio? Have you gotten to a point where you can interpret the sounds and figure out what they're trying to say?
What,
Not yet. Or,
as far as language, like they have their own language. They know all language. They speak some English. It's like they slow themselves down. They dumb themselves down to interact with me, basically, right? And there's been Nephatia. We're given the names that I have are not names that we've given. It's names that they've told us who family members are. So there's Neph. Ninyanin, who's a younger family member, and actually we were just given another family member more recently this past March, and her name is Nadja, Nadja, and that is Neph's woman. I was not allowed to speak of that until I got permission.
So
I could have put it out there, but when you're given something as good as they've given me, I have this picture that is going out soon, and when you're given something that good, it's you got to ask permission, right?
of course. So are they a tribe or are they a family? Like how what's their structure? How do they live? They live like in a tribe style where there's a bunch of families living together?
I don't know.
Is it one family, or is that something they haven't disclosed yet?
Don't know. They're very tight-lipped. They're a few words. They're just as elusive now, 14 years later, whatever it is, as day one. And they've been with us every visit. The activity is indoors. It's outdoors. They are interdimensional. They're interdimensional beings. They're extremely telepathic. Their understanding of consciousness is through the roof. It's unfathomable. You can't even it's too advanced to understand.
Reproducing their race. Did they give you any information? Obviously, a male and a female would mate, and they'd create a baby. Did they tell you anything about them, like their lifespan and rejuvenating their race, and how they keep continuing?
I've asked them, so I've developed written communication, so I've asked questions throughout the years, and at first, it got a bit confusing, so I changed my approach on questions to where I can get a yes or no answer, but it's not always like that. And so one of them was, how long do your people live? They didn't answer it. So I changed my question. I said, do your people live longer than 200 human years? They said, yes. I said, then I tried to up that. I said, do they live longer than 300 years? They didn't respond. I said, do they live longer than 500 years? They didn't respond, so I left it, right? So at least 200 years. I asked, so there's photographs on my YouTube channel showing Neff's face. They were taken in 2019, you know, before the whole AI thing took off. And they were photographed by Dwayne. This happened on purpose. Neff basically posed for the camera. He didn't see him, but he heard him. He heard a giggle, so he pointed his phone, he took a picture. Usually hears a shutter sound go off in his phone. Didn't hear it, so he took a second picture a few seconds later. And, you know, it shows differences in his facial expression, right? I've taken a lot of crap over those photos, but the next visit I had asked them, do you want those put in a video for the world to see? I was expecting them to write no. They wrote not yet. So, oh, okay. I sat on those for almost 3.5 years, and then I was given the message, Mike, you show, and it was those pictures. So when they did that, that basically showed me that this is part of their disclosure. You know, if they're telling you to put out photographs of them, the crystal clear face shots, this is part of their disclosure. So almost 3.5 years later, and it was still a couple years before AI took off. So, you know, when I was asked to put those out, I knew, you know, I've got a shit show coming. Here we go.
Especially with AI being in competition with what you...
Well, this was a couple years before AI took off. So it was a couple years after when AI got good enough that I got attacked with, you know, somebody creating it first in a photo, and then they had it made a couple weeks later. But what was interesting, Neff knew. So we were basically told that somebody's making a mask. And sure enough, it was about 2 weeks later, this came out. And, you know, when you're putting out stuff, when you're directly over the target, it's a constant, you know, harassment, slander, stalking. You know, you're labeled a hoaxer. It never stops, right? But they have given me so much supporting evidence at this point. It's you know, I feel very confident and very strong, and I've always stuck to the truth. There's no need for embellishment with this at all. You know, it's crazy, right? So,
what are the most seminal teachings they've given you over the years?
The what?
What are the most important teachings they've given you over the years in terms of your understanding or expansion of your understanding of the nature of reality and their consciousness?
Well, their abilities show you that this linear 3D is just a fragment of, you know, our true reality, and it's constantly shown, right? But also interacting with them, it makes you a better person. You know, I've seen enough to know that they're an honest people. It's like I said, I've upset Neff more than once, where I've had to, you know, make a better choice, and it's always for the better, you know, always for the better of myself, you know. So it makes you strive to be a better person, right? So they're very they're a good people, you know. I trust them more than humans at this point.
Did they give you an agenda? Like what?
No.
Did they disclose to you what they want from you, and did they have an agenda of you doing something for them?
No. I just I was told way back in 2013 I'm supposed to document.
So that's the agenda.
But that didn't come from them. It came through, you know, somebody in the family, right? That
Yeah.
I was.
They want you to slowly put out information about what they truly are.
Well, I was just.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was told, you know, I'm supposed to document. Like I said, that didn't come to me directly from them. So I've just done me. I've done what I do over the years, and I do my best to do things right. not all information is, to be let out all at once, basically. Like, I know more than I share. And when I say that publicly too, like, people are, well, why do you hold that back? Why do you hold stuff back? It's like, well, because you can't handle the information.
There has to be a time, the perfect time to release that information.
Yeah, there's a time and a
It's like
place
your
for
pictures. If
everything.
you released it after AI, it would not make any sense. But you released them before AI.
Well, they knew that. They knew that.
Credibility. So the time you release the information is extremely important. Am I correct?
Yeah, they know, right? They know what's going on in this world. So there's nothing, it seems nothing's hidden from them. There's a lot of evil going on in this world, and they know what goes on behind closed doors. So they know about weather manipulation, about CERN being used for nefarious intent. I'm a conspiracy guy, so I ask conspiracy-related questions sometimes, and so far they're all coming true, but which isn't surprising. And it seems, that there's been things said by them over the years that show me that they can see back in my timeline and ahead. So they can see what's coming. They can see the future. So perhaps that has to do with reality. Maybe everything is now, right? So I don't know. This is just my speculation and other people's speculation too. So
you mentioned the UFO groups that you had some experiences, and you went to the UFO. Sorry, not the UFO, the Sasquatch support group, and you told your story, and they ridiculized you, and even in the UFO field, we have groups like MUFON where they would take a person's information in Durham, get the information, and then after a certain point, they would discard the guy and then destroy him.
I don't file reports. I'm me. I don't follow anybody. I just I do me. I don't need anybody else to. I don't need any organization. I don't need any government. I don't need anybody. They've given me so much experience at this point.
No, they don't deserve, these groups like MUFON, they don't deserve to know this type of information because, in my opinion, they're just out there to take information, they seal it in a certain compartment, and then they, how do you call it? They destroy your character professionally, and that's an evil thing, and it's very common in the UFO field.
Yeah, it's the same with this, and I don't care. I don't care. Like I said, I just push through. I push forward. So
it's important to know that these groups, we should all stay away from them.
So what we are, we're not. This isn't a discovery by science. This is a reveal by their people as they choose, and they showed me that back in 2013, and so I've watched this subject unfold, knowing that this is a reveal. They're absolutely brilliant people the way they're doing this. They're so intelligent in how they're unfolding their existence to the human race. Science has avoided the truth of this forever, because it breaks the mold of this Newtonian mentality, this system that we've been all taught, to not step outside of. And, they break the mold. So it's quite fascinating, the intelligence of what we're dealing with. Like I said, their abilities. So the first time I was given telepathy from them, I was asleep on the couch. This is back in 2013, and they grunted in my head so loud, I was asleep. I just shot to my feet, and I was right on the phone to Dwayne, like, holy shit, you wouldn't believe what just happened. There's been many incidents of, just the consciousness. I can never stress the level of consciousness that they are. It's, I've learned that they can plant a thought in our mind. some things have taken me many years to, get a full grasp on. Like back in 2013, I'm sitting in a chair outside with Dwayne. I got my hands like this in my lap, and I put a thought in my mind of a marble dropping into my hands. It happened instantly, and I thought, how the hell did they do that? Read my subconscious? And then it was, I can't remember, this past winter, the one before, I lose track, but I'm sitting at a table having a discussion with Dwayne. I'm listening to him, and suddenly I get a thought of a marble in my head, and a marble appears instantly, same time, simultaneously. That's when it clicked. They put the thought and manifested the marble simultaneously. So, oh, okay, it's easy then. And then I reverted back to 2013. It's like, that's what they did then too. That wasn't me thinking that. That was them putting the thought in my mind, making the marble drop in my hands at the exact same time. So, sometimes it takes many years to deduce things. And, I'm very objective, always have been. I probably have tossed a lot of legit stuff in the garbage because it doesn't reach a certain standard that, I need to know for myself.
Mike, what's the name of your channel again?
Sasquatch, Ontario on YouTube.
So why marbles? Have they said why marbles?
Not why, but I'll tell you this, and you won't find this in any historic records. So it was, I think it was this past winter, I'm standing in the kitchen. I had given them some gifts. So most people, if not all people, gift outdoors with them, in the woods, have a gifting spot. We're at the level, it's all at the end of the kitchen counter. All gifting is done indoors. Sometimes they take it instantly, like it's gone within seconds or, a few short minutes. Sometimes takes hours. And so the one visit, I'm standing in the kitchen, I hadn't received a marble yet, because I'm always joking if I don't have a marble by a certain time. I'm like, oh, you guys finally ran out, eh? Finally ran out. I say it all the time, and I always come home with a marble, or 2 or 10, or... And as soon as my sentence, or I said, can I have a gift in exchange for what I gave you? As soon as my sentence finished, boom, this big marble hits the floor in front of my face. I saw it come out of thin air, right? And I picked it up. It's like, what's this? And, I was like, is this a rock? Or, what is this round thing? It looked like it was a stone. Or
I actually seen pictures of the marbles, and Greg has this marble. And the interesting thing is this marble has anything like any marble that's produced today.
So
You look at this.
let me finish my story, Charlie. So, sorry. So this thing comes out of thin air, and I'm looking at it, and then I took it home, and contemplating this thing, and I'm looking, I'm thinking, this looks like a marble, and it was a big one. And so I took another marble from my collection that I had from them, and it was basically identical size. And I actually weighed it, and they both were like a real marble, and this one. They both weighed 32 grams. They were both the exact same weight, which I found fascinating. And I took it back the next visit, because now I had questions. And I said, is this a handmade marble from your people? They said, yes. I said, are your people the original creators of marbles in the game of marbles? They said, yes. And then I asked, how old is this marble? They wrote what looks like 700. I wrote how many years, right? So whether they were messing with me, on the age of that, I don't know. I tried to get more information on that, and they never responded. So, I might be sitting on this 700-year-old, marble made by the Sasquatch, right?
And when you're gifting, like, would you put, like, for example, if you want to draw in the Anishinaabe, you put out, like, shiny things, right? If you want the little people to come and heal you, that type of thing. Like, do you get them coming in at all when you're gifting? Or?
What, little people?
Yeah.
I've never seen any evidence of that.
Yeah.
It's just this family, right? So, like the gifting at this point, like I said, I just learned Neff smokes, this winter, which is just, it's mind-boggling. And but also he likes beer. So
This way, maybe you guys are teaching them all this stuff.
I don't know. They've been around a long time, so I don't know, you know.
No.
So, you know, there's a couple times before I started gifting that over the years that, you know, Dwayne would have a beer go missing, you know, knowing it's them, you know, get all upset in that. And so I started gifting Neff a beer. And then, you know, I was trying different ones and they always disappear. And then I was giving them 2. And then one night, again, this past winter, one night, Dwayne had one go missing. So now I'm giving him 3. So now he gets 3 beers every visit. And it's funny because Dwayne's would go missing. So I found out that Neff likes those ones, right? And it's a cheap beer. So I'm like, you know, good. It's not an expensive beer. Because it gets expensive feeding these guys with you know, the gifts. I bring garlic bulbs and fresh ginger, you know, dark chocolates for the kids, magic mushrooms for Ninyanin, you know, cigarettes and beer, and yeah, it's just. And I always ask them, guys, please take my gifts, please, and they always do, right? They always.
What clothes do they wear?
I have no idea. Visuals are very rare. You know, even in a situation like this with trust built, there's been visuals, but I have not been given a close visual yet. I've had an incident where I'm sitting at the kitchen table and it looked about the size of a black cat, and it just went, you know, at my feet. And, you know, Dwayne figures it was one of the young ones, right? He's been given a couple of visuals. I'm still waiting, and it took 12 years for them to give him a visual. And, you know, he's basically got the, you know, the activity is there. I was invited in, right, to help bring this together and develop this. So over the years, they've been, like I said, extremely giving. The abilities are absolutely astounding. It seems that they can travel with just a thought. The speed at which they can travel is just phenomenal. We even have had an incident one night. So when I told you about that night where we were back in 2013, where I was sitting and had the marble dropped in my hands, I think that was the same night. We're sitting in the chairs and I get that over my face. I get my face, you know, nose and mouth covered. Hairy hand, at least I hope it was a hand. And then it was in the dark, and I remember I saw this wispy black smoke right here just before it happened. And I told Dwayne, I said, you know, it's darker than dark. And he's like, what do you mean darker than dark? And then it happened to him. He got caught with his mouth open. He got a mouthful of hair, and but he saw that wispy dark smoke, black smoke, and so it was, I think, a couple years back now. Don't quote me on that. We were sitting at the kitchen table having a discussion, and that incident came up. We were talking about that wispy smoke. Dwayne gets up to go grab beer out of the fridge behind me, and there's basically a circular pattern of this powder on the floor. And it's like, where the hell did this come from? You know, so gathered it up. I took some to Judy's conference there at the Native Center, and John D'Souza was there, former or retired FBI, and I asked him, I said, can you go take this and get it analyzed for me? So he did. The guy who he took it to didn't even, kind of upset me a bit because he didn't, you know, take it and tell me what the compounds were of it, because he already knew what it was as soon as he saw it. He goes, it's one of 3 things. This powder has been found with a massive rocket launch, or with a UFO taking off, or more recently they discovered that it's found when a portal opens and closes. So you know, there was a bit of a radioactive element to it, not enough that it's harmful. but the guy threw the rest in the garbage. I had just a little bit left, right? But so I basically still had this little bit of powder left over from a portal, basically opening and closing behind us in the kitchen, you know, and that happened after we talked about that powder incident, right? There was a more recent incident that happened right behind me where Dwayne, you know, he said, is there any of that powder on the floor? Because Neff basically, well, don't know if it was Neff because he didn't see his face, but he kind of phased in and out. It was like, it was really fast, right? Like I saw his eyes go wide and he like, holy shit. And I swung around and it was over by that time, right? For some reason, they're not giving me a visual yet, you know, except for that under the table thing. So there's, you know, this has been very consistent over the years. Like I said, it's every visit. You know, we don't have to, I get asked all the time, set up video cameras, do this, do that. And, you know, I tried all that in the beginning and I've learned about their intelligence and it's a disrespect to them to try and trick them, you know, as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, I've done my best to approach this in a respectable way. And I think I've done a pretty good job because they keep on giving, right? So it's, you know, it's been very earth-shattering, life-changing, and really changed my perspective on reality and what this world consists of. And I believe that they are revealing their existence because they know what's going on in this world with all the evil stuff, right? They're well aware, much more than we are as humans, and I believe they just kind of nudging us to hopefully wake up and you know, Neff's basically his message is to come together, right? You know, for all of us to come together.
Coming together. So there's rumors that, and with these rumors, that the Sasquatch race is interested in hybriding with humans, and there's been cases where, like Sasquatch and a human have been having children. So with this family, have you had any information about their race mixing with our race? I mean, they enjoy our beer, they like our food, they like having fun like we do, and the fact that we can make babies. It's part of their agenda.
If you're asking Charlie if you know they interbreed with humans, I don't know. I don't know. What's that?
Are they always males?
No. There's in this family, there's young, there's old, there's male, female, you know, kids, adults, just like us. They are human types and they have different races as humans do. And I found that out because when I put those photographs of Neff out, there's no other photos out there that shows a nose like he has. So that brought me to ask them, do you have different races like humans do? And they said yes. So they've also said they were here before us, which makes sense to me. They're built for this earth. We're not. But I want to play you guys some vocalizations because I know there's some people here that haven't heard this stuff yet, and they've just given me some absolutely incredible vocals over the years. I've really accumulated quite a substantial library of audio from them. So I'll just I'm going to throw this on and hopefully this plays and let you guys just listen to a few vocals, and that, you know, when I'm done with this, then you guys got some questions, we can do that. Okay, here we go. Oh, hold on here. I gotta attach this, sorry. Bear with me 1 second. There we go. Do that again. That? This one might blow it. Right at my vehicle there. Oh, this is the tree. One of the trees.
I think my friends just pushed the tree over.
I was by myself. It was 10:30 at night. There's two of them. That's two of them vocalizing simultaneously. This is a roar. That's a dog barking in the distance. They know I'm recording. They're just messing around with my equipment. They're having fun. He said tree flower there. He loves those words. The rest was another language. Calling my name. He's hammering on my roof.
Go! Yeah.
That's it for that video. So, you know, it's up to you guys. Like, I can play more. I got so much vocalizations. You know, if you, I can play one more here that there was some stuff going on at the cottage with stalking, trespassing way back in 2015, and so Dwayne pulled the plug, and this was the last visit, and they knew that that was going to happen. So Neff actually says, "We love you." That's part of this. There's more vocals than that, though. I'll just play this one more video of that. It's all right. Hold on here. Bear with me while this comes up. Okay, so this is this past winter. This is the first time they did this. I've probably been hit by a snowball by a Sasquatch more than anybody on earth. But this one happened indoors. I was sitting at the kitchen table and I got belted in the back of the head with a snowball.
Inside.
Yeah. I'm sitting at.
It's all over. Oh, come on, guys.
Let me rewind that.
Holy shit. It's gonna hit in the head with a snowball. What? Look, it's all over the ground. Come on, guys. Look. It's about, what is it, 3:45 in the morning. Close to it. And this trackway just appeared.
Yeah, you can't see that. It's because that's video. So let me try and move ahead here a bit. Shit.
It's a...
This is the piece I'm talking about.
You, my friend. Miss you, my friend. Now who? Who? And who? Now, here, my friend. What is Oomda? Love you, buddy. Thanks for coming into my life, my friend. Really happy to have you in my life, my friend.
Right here.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah, I love you, buddy.
So that night I was having an allergy attack, so that's why he said achoo at the end. So I'll kill that for a sec. Yeah, like, you know, I could talk all night with this, but I don't want to keep everybody. So if anybody has any questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing everything. Something remarkable happened to you. I think it was a couple of years ago at one of Judy's events, Bigfoot Will Heal Us. There was a presenter and presenting some information. And from the story, from what I remember, is that someone pointed out in the audience, said, hey, like, what's that on the screen? Can you explain that? And the eyeballs showing up?
He was showing some photographs up on the screen, and this one had these two eyeballs on it in the middle of the photograph, and they disappeared in front of everybody. And I asked him about that, and because he ended up saying, no, there was no eyeballs in that picture. You know, that was the first time he'd ever heard of that. And there was several people that had witnessed that in the room. I think Amy saw that, right?
Judy, you saw it too.
Yes, we all saw it, the whole auditorium, the people that were there saw his, the eyeballs, there were red eyes coming off from the screen when he was displaying his picture. And then, of course, he had his back against us, the picture. And then we're like, did you guys see that? Hey, Mike? And
Yeah.
we're like, everyone saw it, and then they disappeared after. It wasn't part of his presentation, just a picture, or there was no effects or anything like that. It was just doing
Still shots.
word
Yeah.
pro or something like that, like a presentation.
Yeah, he was just showing photographs, and his back was to the screen, so he didn't see the eyes, and there was no eyes in his original picture. Yeah.
Wow.
When I hear the sounds of the Sasquatch, there's a sense that I don't know if you're intuitive. There's a lot of adrenaline in these creatures. Sorry, in these beings. The Sasquatch has an adrenaline that's so powerful that's where the bright eyes come from. His adrenaline is running, and the eyes start glowing, and they turn red. They turn big colors, and they light up.
I don't know why, or like how that happens or why that happens.
If you look at a dog,
I do. I'll mention this though. Like a lot of people ask about the smells. Do they stink? Do they smell? No, they don't. They actually create smells, and they can turn them off and on like a light switch. Nin Yannon, this young guy, has used Dwayne and I as a guinea pig. I've actually been sitting at the kitchen table, and it felt like a little mini tornado smell of dog shit right up my nostrils. And Dwayne's sitting right there, and he's smelling nothing. So we've had numerous different smells happen over the years, and so they turn them on and off like a light switch. They can direct them to an individual, and they can so they create and they can recreate smells just like they can do with sounds. So any other questions?
Sasquatch turd and pee. Is there any evidence of it? Sasquatch, like.
Oh, I've seen Neff's.
Have you seen the poo?
I've seen urine from them
their
a bunch of
urine?
times. I've seen that a bunch of times.
Wow. Have you photographed?
No, I don't care. I don't care. I don't collect hair anymore. I don't care.
Charlie would love a sample of it.
We can make you a special snow cone, Charlie.
Take a picture.
Probably Randy drank his every day. It might be iconic.
We want to see Sasquatch poo. That's evidence.
I actually collected some right at the very beginning, and I remember I wanted to get it to, this is before I evolved with the situation. I wanted to get it to Melba Ketchum, and she's stateside, right? So I remember I put it in the freezer, and when the right time came, I packed it in ice, put it in a cooler, and I drove it across the border. And I remember it was in my trunk, and I remember the car in front of me. Border Patrol goes up to the car and gets them to pop the trunk, and I'm like, oh shit. What are you gonna say? What's this, sir? Well, it's a pile of frozen Sasquatch shit. But that never happened, thankfully.
What does it look like? Is there a style of it, or is it thick? Is it? I mean, how does it come out?
It's a pile of shit, Charlie.
Whatever there is that day.
Yeah, Michael.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you have any intuitive feeling about where your contact's headed with them?
I don't like to put any expectation on it or anything, so I'm just kind of going with it wherever it goes and doing my best to respect and do it properly, and so far so good.
Are they all over the world?
Yes. Every place, whatever they have, they all have their different names. There's hundreds of names for them. So.
Any more questions?
What's your opinion on lots of people say where there's Sasquatch, there's UFO sightings, and vice versa. What's your opinion on that? They say sometimes where there's Sasquatch, there's UFO sightings.
It's all connected, right? It's all connected. It's all interdimensional, right? So I would think they all know about each other, considering how powerful their minds are. Whether they interact with each other, I don't know personally, because I've not experienced that. People say they do. I don't know. Some people say they fly in ships. I don't know.
Had, like UFO experiences at the same time you had like Sasquatch. So.
Tyler's cabin, my initial visit there basically was a catalyst to fire up the Sasquatch activity on his property, and then we had a cigar-shaped ship fly over top of our heads. So both experienced there at his property.
Mr. Paterson, thank you for joining us this weekend and for your relentless search for truth and sharing your experiences with our interdimensional neighbors and talking about love as a means for contact. That's very important, and not many people are talking about that, so thank you. Mr. Paterson, guys, thank you.
Thanks.
Experience the Bigfoot Will Heal Us 4th Annual Conference and Healing Campout, presented by Sackney Arts and co-hosted by Field of Consciousness. From August 28th to August 30th, 2026, in the beautiful region of Ontario. A minimum fee of pay what you can. Join us for healing workshops featuring energy healing, astrology, tea leaf readings, remote viewing, and CE5 meditations. Engage with Sasquatch clans through live interactions led by traditional healer Judy Sackney and Ian Snyder, a friend of a Sasquatch clan, including many guest speakers. Sean Orris, Mike Fastine, remote viewer, Tyler Scott, Mike Paterson, Sasquatch researcher and contactee, and group past life regression sessions with Leslie Mitchell Clark, master hypnotherapist and regressionist. Special appearances by Zoom by Brian Bland of the Pork and Bean Show and James Brost. Enjoy an art exhibit and delicious indigenous foods, including bison burgers. Don't miss this chance to heal and connect with the Sasquatch clans. For more information, contact sackneyart@gmail.com, SACKANEYART@gmail.com.
Welcome to Genie Lamp Studios. We offer on-site video production and studio rental.